All right, guys. Our next guest is a friend of the show who saw one of his longtime fighters have the return of a lifetime, beating Daniel Cormier and becoming the undisputed UFC light heavyweight champion once again. One half of Jackson Winkeljohn. We have Coach Mike Winkeljohn on the line. Coach, welcome back on the show. It's great to have you back on.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. I love being on your show.
Excellent, great, because we love it as well, and it was great seeing you in Anaheim. What fans didn't see was that just before we did our interview with you outside the Honda Center, a fan came up to you and was like, "Hey, are you Daniel Cormier's coach?" And you said, "No, I am not." It was a hilarious little moment. I'm just wondering, do you get a lot of fans? We were thinking, what hilarious timing. I mean, the countdowns are everywhere. But anyway, fans get confused. Do you get a lot of fans approaching you on these fight weeks? And what's some of the stranger things and interactions you've had said to you by fans?
Well, sometimes I make the mistake, I guess, in some ways, of walking down to the crowd. Not that I like the fans, like talking to them. The problem is that you try to get places to go, and it makes it hard to get going and stuff. No, you know what? Nothing really exciting other than I'm always, I guess, impressed with the enthusiasm some of the fans have for the fighters and how important it is, how their superstars are important to them, you know. And it's I don't know, it's kind of neat to see that Jon Jones or Holm can have that kind of influence on people. So, with that being said, hopefully, everybody does the right thing. Jon Jones the right thing, and shows people the right path.
And I feel like you're almost like a father figure to people in the MMA community. They've loved you for so long. They've watched you for so long. So whenever you're around, I feel like people just feel like they can come up to you, take photos, and say weird things. And it was a memorable event. Lots of great fights, UFC 214. And before we jump up the card, we just wanted to check in on Cowboy. We know he had a huge battle with Robbie Lawler. So we're just wondering, how's he doing now over a week removed since the fight's gone down?
You know what, Cowboy, two things. Immediately after the fight, I was worried about his eye more than the fight. I thought Cowboy had edged that fight, but with that being said, that's arguable. I was worried about his eye because he got poked in the eye, and I had lost my eye ways back. So my worry at that moment was I got to make sure that his vision's okay. But it's great. He's fine. He's looked at the tape since, and he thinks he won the fight. He knew that he got in there with Robbie Lawler and banged with him. Cowboy's always proud of that. I wish he wasn't. And was one of the best in the world. And so he's okay with it now that he went back and watched the fight and saw how well he did in the actual fight.
We saw there was a possible fracture to his left eye as well because he got slapped with a pretty long medical suspension. Do you know, have the tests been cleared? Does he have a fracture under that eye? Is he good to come back sooner?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. I'm sure he's going to be okay, or else I probably would have hurt him. So if I had to guess, knowing Cowboy the way he is, he's going to want to fight as soon as possible. So expect Cowboy to fight soon.
And just curious, what did you think of the fight, and more specifically the decision? Because there was a lot of debate over who won that third round. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, you know what? That's the way it is. I think a lot of judges are always influenced by the forward pressure and the big swinging shots versus more accuracy on the shots, that type of thing, and movement. And so I can see sometimes the judges, I always expect the judges to go the other way, to give it to Robbie Lawler because he's coming forward. I mean, Robbie did that with Carlos Condit and got the decision. That's what Robbie does. He's great at what he does. But I really thought that Cowboy had edged that fight out and had won it.
Well, while we're speaking of the welterweight division, Tyron Woodley, he got a lot of flack for the way the fight played out with him and Demian Maia. Dana White gave the GSP fight to Bisping, and he had some negative things to say about Woodley. But from Tyron's perspective, he kind of fought a smart fight, took very little damage. And as a coach and someone who understands smart game plans, what did you think about him being so criticized over his performance by the UFC? Do you think it was warranted?
Yes, from a promoter standpoint, they like the wars. They like the fight of the night. Of course they do, because it sells and that type of thing. But for the fighter himself, for the champion, for Tyron, he's a smart individual. It's all about the W, not doing something stupid. And, at the end of the day, you get paid more usually when you get the W than when you have just a big brawl. And play it right. Get the win is the most important thing at this level. That's why, the Mayweathers of the world, might not brawl, might be so good defensively, but they make a lot of money. and they're not getting the brain damage.
Absolutely. I honestly think that the UFC was a little bit harsh in that Tyron Woodley fight. I agree with you. I think he really did do what he needed to do. While we're talking about the card, Cris Cyborg obviously went in there, made history. She was able to become the new featherweight champion of the UFC. Tonya Evinger, though, she was able to stay in there and make this more of a fight than many believe. She hung in there, showed her toughness. Just curious, what did you think of Chris's performance, Coach?
There's a lot of ways to look at it. You know, Cris is, she showed that she can do some more rounds. I wasn't sure about her conditioning after a weight cut, but there's some holes in her game. There's no doubt. I think Evinger showed a lot of that. I think she exposed her in many ways. Now Tanya's kind of unorthodox with her striking, so that can make anybody look kind of weird sometimes. But with that being said, I think we definitely see a lot of weaknesses in Cris Cyborg. You know, I like Cris as a person and stuff, but there's no doubt there's some holes in there, and she's definitely beatable.
And it looks like she wants Holly next as the next opponent, and the UFC look like they're really keen on Holly fighting next as well. So we know Holly was there during the post-fight presser watching Jon Jones, but has the UFC already had a chat with you guys about her being the next contender?
Yeah, there's talks back and forth. You know, right now it's at the point where you know, Holly is fought her last fight at 135, jumping up in weight when Cyborg's cutting. Those are the issues that we have to think about and decide time-wise what's best. Holly, on a side note, never will turn down a fight. She's like, yeah, whatever you want. And she basically leaves that up to myself and her manager, Lenny Fresquez. And she'll just go out and fight. So she's okay with fighting Cyborg. There is no doubt about it. She's okay with she really wants to get a shot at Shevchenko again and or Nunes if Nunes wins the fight. But that's where Holly's mind's at right now. She just wants the big fight. And she's very capable of it.
And I'm just curious, where do you sit on this, Coach? Because we've obviously spoken many times before, and you've made it clear that you'd like to see Cris be clean for a year before Holly fights. So it looks like the UFC are targeting November 4th, the Madison Square Garden card. Have you sort of changed your stance on the fight and how soon it could happen? Do you think this would be something that might stop the fight from happening on November 4th? You'd like to sort of, I guess, have more time between you know, Holly and Cris fighting?
You know, Holly's always been bitter when she said the short notice fight, so it's not a time thing. You know, I think I would like to see Cris be clean for a long period of time, and there's no doubt she has been busted in the past. But with that being said, it's just about what's the right fight for Holly right now at this time in her career. And the Cris Cyborg fight may or may not be the right fight, so it depends on money, where it's at, and if we have enough time to put on a little bit of weight to fight at Cris Cyborg.
I mean, Cris has ruled for a really long time, but I guess her biggest criticism is that she hasn't really fought the highest caliber opponents in a lot of her fights. And this isn't Chris's fault by any means. It's just people weren't really available for her to fight. So fighting someone with Holly Holm's experience and abilities, how do you see this fight playing out?
Oh, you know, I think Holly can pick her apart. There's no doubt about it. What people don't understand is how strong Holly is, too, in the clinch. They're on her feet, moving and stuff. Cris is definitely going to try to do most of her damage, pushing her back against the cage. You know, good luck keeping Holly there and backing her up, coming in that hard. But, yeah, you know, Cris is very strong. But I think Holly wears her down and is able to stop her. You know, Holly, you look at Holly's knockout percentage. I think next to her and Amanda Nunes are the biggest out there. She stops all of her fights, everybody else other than Cyborg. So Holly's got the power to stop Cyborg, just like Cyborg has the power. The difference is Holly's got the speed and the footwork.
And she's obviously had a huge amount of accomplishments in her career. Obviously, MMA fans are most familiar with her for defeating Ronda Rousey back when people said it couldn't be done. And I feel like if she went in there and beat Cyborg, it'd be almost like history repeating itself. There goes Holly Holm again, sort of throwing a wrench in the UFC's plans. What do you think it would mean for her legacy if she did add Cyborg to her resume?
I'll be fantastic, you know, and I think it puts Holly back where she deserves to be. You know, she was I thought she beat Randame. Miesha Tate was just a game of inches, and she wasn't there for Shevchenko. But Holly deserves to be considered the best of all time, and she'll be back. Mark my words.
All right, well, let's jump over to Jon Jones because he looked great all week long and performed fantastically. Now that the fight's come and gone, though, you got to dish the dirt to us, Coach. Tell us, was the lead-up as smooth as it appeared? Or were there any issues in camp with injuries, anything niggling away at Jon, or any setbacks that you can share with us now that the fight's in the books?
Oh, yeah, I'll share with you a couple nights before the fight. Yeah, he couldn't lift his arm. he had hurt at wrestling. He wrestled a little too hard with his partner, and maybe from a lack of warm-up, I'm not sure. But it was kind of scary. It was one of those situations where when I was warming him up, I'd asked the coaches, and they had agreed, they were ahead of me on this, that we shouldn't be doing a lot of wrestling because I didn't want John to have to underhook and lift with his one arm because it could potentially cause it to, be hurt again and mess with his mindset. I wanted to keep that out of it, and hopefully, so that way, if he got re-injured in the fight, the adrenaline would take over. So it was kind of scary that nobody knew about. There was an injury behind the scenes, but John is who he is. He's as tough as they come, and like I said, nobody beats Jon Jones by himself. Once he decides he wants to win a fight, he's going to win.
That's crazy. And just to clarify, so that happened 2 days before the fight. What was John's reaction when that happened? I imagine you guys as coaches would have been pretty concerned at that point about going in there with a phenomenal wrestler like Daniel Cormier and John not being able to lift his arm.
Oh yeah, he just couldn't lift it basically over his head and stuff. It's just, of course, it's definitely concerning. You're thinking, in my mind, I'm thinking, are you going to be able to underhook with that arm, or if not, you're going to use a lot more frames and more downward pressure and circle the opposite direction. So game plan might have to be changed a little bit if it doesn't get healed. So there's a lot of things that are going through the coach's mind. Who knows what was going through John's mind? He basically didn't say anything other than he's fighting.
Wow. And I mean, what was the status of the arm as you guys were walking out to the octagon? Was it a little bit recovered, or was it still at a point where it was a worry for you guys?
Well, he didn't say anything about it. Let me put it that way. No matter how much it hurt, if it was tingling, if it felt weak, John didn't say anything. He just went and fought, and that's why Jon Jones is champion. He has that mindset.
Wow, that's crazy. And obviously Daniel Cormier showed up and really delivered on that night, really brought in the second fight. Didn't make it easy for John by any means. What were your thoughts in those starting couple of rounds of the fight, and what did you think of the DC that you saw in there?
Well, I tell you what, DC was hunting, and he was catching John with some good shots as he was able to pressure in on John. And I was real scared of his uppercut before the fight, and I was definitely scared of it during the fight. But then what started playing out was John was standing still a little bit at the end of Daniel's punches and getting caught, kind of not moving ahead of time and causing some chaos in Daniel's mind. And we got caught a few times, so I was a little scared because Daniel can hit very hard. I mean, he used to knock out heavyweights left and right. So that was kind of scary in that sense. But once John got back to a longer range, I say, John, go back to kicking range. It made Daniel start swinging for the fences and missing in the third round. And, he had been breaking the body down constantly. So, part of the plan was to do that, just hit him with a whole bunch of shots. And then all of a sudden I told John that this is going to be the night where you get that big boom. It's going to happen. And they had worked body shots over and over. Brandon Gibson and him had worked so many body shots that became a big part of the game plan, was just tear that body down. And then eventually you're going to find something big.
And I mean, you and Greg and the whole coaching stuff, you guys do an amazing job in the corner, especially when it kind of seems like the momentum was starting to go towards DC. I'm just curious, Coach, what's kind of the secret to dealing with a fighter in the corner when things are starting to look a little bit rough? Because we've seen a lot of coaches that haven't really been able to make the most from the situation.
You know what? It's just the biggest thing is, we're always just trying to always calm our file down, and there's different fighters. Some fighters are more emotional than others, but most of our fighters respond to just basic, simple logic in that, okay, calm down, relax. Okay, he got you this. That won't happen anymore if you change this, that, or the other thing. And if you start doing, plan B. And, people usually respond. And I guess we're very, very lucky that, fighters listen to us. And it's worked in the past. So if the fighters believe, almost sometimes, I can't say if it's the wrong advice, but the fighters believe, then that's what matters, because then they'll go perform.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously that head kick, that was the thing of beauty. When did you know that this fight was over? Was it once John hit it, or did you think DC may sort of recover and come back? What was going through your mind during those moments?
As soon as he hit it, and I saw DC's legs wobble, he was basically out on his feet. He was having a hard time standing up. John missed him with a few of the shots, kind of swept his leg, which is a neat little trip that John does a lot. But other than that, it was DC just stumbling, trying to stay up. I think his mind was not there, but he was trying to get his legs underneath him, and he didn't know where he was at. I think he was eventually just going to fall down no matter what. Jon just had to hit him when he was on the ground. So I felt as soon as he hit that kick, I knew it was pretty much the end of the night.
And it was a beautiful kick. Was that something you guys were just drilling continuously going into this fight, or was it something that just sort of came out of nowhere for you?
Oh yeah, no, we drilled it. We knew Daniel had a tendency. I mean, everybody knows he has a tendency to lean that way and dip that way quite a bit. Anthony Johnson caught him with it. It's hard to change those habits you've been doing all your life. Plus, it's just natural for an orthodox fighter to pull that direction defensively, just depending on his hand positioning. So we knew that something coming up that direction had a good potential of knocking him out.
And you've obviously been with Jon through some tough times, and then you got him ready for UFC 200, and him never getting a chance to fight at UFC 200. Obviously, been around him at times when fighting seemed like we didn't even know if it was going to happen again. How did it feel when you saw that he did it? He won the fight, and he became once again the undisputed champion, of the UFC.
Oh, it was great. It was a great feeling. It was great for him because I know Jon I shouldn't say needed that, but I was excited for Jon Jones to redeem himself and get back to where he was before. And like I said, no one beats Jon Jones but himself. So now it's all back in Jon's corner again. He is the guy. He's considered the best, and so now he just has to do the right things and train hard. And I think you haven't seen a lot of what Jon Jones can do. He's capable of so much. I knew he was capable of the one-punch knockouts all day long, but what Jon can do is he can do it all. His submissions are at a whole different level. His wrestling, as you know, that's what he started with. He's great at what he does, and so he's just really hard to fight because he's so good everywhere.
Well, I mean, the big fight everyone is now focused on is Brock Lesnar. You didn't really want to go into it too much prior to UFC 214, but now that this DC fight is done, tell us, what are your feelings on this fight?
Oh, I love the fight. I actually personally, I really do like Brock Lesnar. He's got some great character. He has been real cordial to me in the past. That was definitely not needed. So I like that guy. I've always actually wanted to train him.
When did you guys interact? I'm just curious. When did you guys sort of have any interactions and speak?
Brock Lesnar is this guy that's supposed to be this mean WWE star, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And he didn't know who I was. I don't know how many years ago it was when he basically was even thinking about getting the UFC, and he hasn't even gotten the UFC yet. And he was at a casino. I don't know if he watched some fights. I had Michelle Waterson fight outside of Phoenix. And I'm walking around the hotel at 2:30 in the morning, and my car didn't show up to take me to the airport. And he goes, "Hey, coach," which surprised me because I didn't know he even knew I was a coach.
Wow.
And he goes, "What's going on?" I said, "I don't have a ride to the airport. I got to figure this crap out." This is before Uber, Yeah. And he goes, "Hold on." He said, "Hold on." He went and got his bags. He got his driver, and he drove me to the airport. He went to the airport early. He didn't know me, and that's my own story. Wow. I mean, who does that? Who does that? Here's this guy that's supposed to be, some people don't like for whatever reason. To me, is just, I don't know how to describe it other than I was very taken back and very appreciative, and I've never really spoken to him since, but I like the guy. But with that being said, it's a sport, and he's a big guy that can run a hard double, and he's a big train, and you do not want to be in those train tracks when he's coming at you. But I think it'd be a great fight for the fans. I think it's a big money fight, and I think it can bring a lot of excitement to the sport.
Absolutely. And I mean, it was a fight that a lot of fans were really excited about when they first heard about it. We saw that Jon said that he asked his coaches their thoughts on the fight. So I'm just wondering, was it a clean sweep, and all of you, Greg, Izzy, Brandon, all agreed that Brock was kind of the fun and the right choice next? Or did anybody sort of prefer Stipe or somebody else at 205 as the next option for him?
Oh, no, I think it's the perfect fight for many reasons. I think it's a marketable fight. It's a money fight, and it's at this place where it shows the two different styles. So now you have somebody that's smaller, assume he's quicker against the bigger fighter, so that's coming forward. So it's a very sellable fight. It's kind of an exciting fight to see who can impose their will. And, we think Jon can win that fight. So we're real excited to have him do that.
And we'll let you go in a moment, Coach, because we appreciate your time. I wanted to get your perspective on this, though, because Jon obviously made the point about how much of a bigger draw Brock Lesnar is compared to Stipe, and that's kind of the driving force between choosing Brock over Stipe. A lot of fans, a lot of people have sort of theorized that Jon's picking the easier fight in Brock over Stipe, which kind of is nonsensical, seeing as Jon really has zero obligation to move up in the first place. But from your standpoint, can you sort of clarify that? And also, in your mind, who do you think is the tougher fight, Brock or Stipe?
Well, a different type of fighters. Stipe can knock out a horse when he hits him. I'm not saying Brock couldn't. He's just slower when he does it. And Brock's you got to get out of the way of Brock when he's driving forward. So definitely different fights, but what you said earlier is the key. Jon is a light heavyweight. So you can't ask somebody just to step up and fight the best in the world at that heavyweight and forego the money fight against someone that they can beat. Jon said it himself. He thinks a good big man always beats a good smaller man. Jon Jones said that in his press conference. And do I think Jon thinks he can beat Stipe? Yeah. Do I think he might have said it? Yes. But I like the Brock Lesnar fight for right now, and we need to work on some skills and get some weight on Jon before he fights with Stipe, because I think Stipe is a harder fight.
Mm-hmm. And you told us in Anaheim that you believe Jon is sort of the better wrestler. And we saw how Jon was able to handle DC's wrestling as well, which was really, really impressive. Do you think he can stuff all of Brock's takedowns, or do you think because of Brock's size advantage, Jon at some point would be fighting off his back?
He could, but people will be surprised. You haven't seen Jon on his back, what Jon can do. He's got some great scoops in there, but also getting Jon to his back is very hard. His hips are up first all the time. He's very good in the scramble. And Jon's hard to take down. It's, like I said, it's Brock's going to shoot on him, but it doesn't mean Jon's going to be right in front of him. So, expect Jon to, like I said, get off the tracks. And I see Brock coming so hard that he's going to be, it's good. It's going to be one of those things where I like to see Jon get out of the way and Brock basically runs to the cage. In essence, that kind of theory, get out of the way. So stuffing the shot is different than not letting the shot happen and doing things to your strikes that makes him not want to shoot, scare him, kind of like Alice Stroverim did. So there's a lot of different ways for the fight to play out.
Do you think Jon has the capabilities to finish a big guy like Lesnar? We saw his finishing power in this DC fight. Do you think he has the skills and would be able to overcome the size advantage and actually finish Lesnar?
Oh, I sure do. I think Jon can knock out anybody with his strikes. The problem in the past is Jon, striking was not his base. Wrestling was his base. So all those years when he came over to us, it was just kind of working with Jon. He was just doing a lot of repetition, a lot of different unpredictable type of shots. But it was always, a lot of reps, a lot of I want to say just bop, 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 that type of thing. But as you saw with this fight with Daniel, it was time. We had that conversation that it's time to go hard, and he started letting some things go hard, and that's kind of a first for Jon Jones. Letting his 100%ers go, and he believes. And once he believes in something, like I said about Jon Jones, he always makes it work.
And we know the feelings that you have about Cris Cyborg in regards to a history of failed drug tests. Is there a concern at all about Brock and his controversial PED past, considering especially how recent everything is with what happened with him and Mark Hunt?
Well, you know what you got in front of you, like I said. So you got this guy who's just gigantic and stuff. I'm coming at Jon, so it is what it is. No, it's not really concerned with him. I think guys that have done peds in the past is different than girls that have done them in the past, because they do get bigger, but you kind of expect that with a guy. The girls that do it, I'm always worried about, okay, they're clean, but what about their past bone? What did it change bone structure? Did it change density on different things? That's where things change a little bit. So I think it has more of an effect for girls than it does for guys. Not that it's not cheating for guys as well.
That's actually a really interesting perspective. I'm glad you said that. Coach, we'll let you go in a moment. Just want to confirm. So Brock Lesnar, that is who you are going after at the moment for Jon Jones. That's the fight that tickles the fancy the most.
Yeah, but like I said, I don't know. I would love to see that fight happen, but I would put money on Jon fighting weight a lot sooner than that one fight between it, just because of the fact that I don't think Brock can fight for a while. But if that was possible, I would love for that to be the next fight.
Because obviously, like you mentioned, this fight wouldn't go down to 2018. And, we've spoken to some people, and a lot of people believe the UFC would want to keep Jon on the shelf until that Lesnar fight happens. and possibly in the meantime, maybe even see if Volkan can fight Gustafsson to see who Jon Jones would fight next. Would you be a fan of Jon sort of staying away from the sport now that he's made his comeback and waiting for that Lesnar fight and letting these Volkan and Gustafsson duke it out instead to see who fights him after this Lesnar fight? Or would you like to see him back there sooner or later because he's been away from the cage for quite some time?
I'd like to see him back in there, honestly. I think Jon is, now that he was training off season, when Jon's motivated, to get in there a fight, he keeps progressing. He keeps getting better at what he does. So instead of taking a lot of time off, I would love to see Jon back in right away. And in some ways, I think he needs it.
All right, well, there you go, Coach. We believe we've taken up too much of your time, or enough of your time. We could chat to you all day and absorb your insight, but we really appreciate the time you've given us. Of course, make sure to follow at Coach Wink on Twitter, at MMA Coach Wink, and visit jacksonwink.com. You can register for some awesome fan experiences, obviously training with Coach Wink, Greg Jackson, the entire team, stay in the dorms with other pro fighters. We've obviously got a bunch of Aussies there at the moment. We've got Tyson Pedro there, and it's pretty surreal experience in general, so make sure to go check it out. And as always, we love having you on the program, Mike. Really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for stopping by and chatting with us.
Gentlemen, thanks for having me.